on the worlds in twinkling of the stars, repeat of them the only name non-stopping. These are the lines written by Innokentий Annenский. Stay tuned and let's learn more about him together. Hello and welcome to our 5 minutes with Ekaterina Russian poetry. Our poet for today, who is Innokentий Annenский, is not that known, but his poetry influenced so many other poets that I couldn't skip him talking about the Russian literature. He was born in 1855 in the family of the governmental worker, and his wife, who was the granddaughter of the famous Hannibal, who was also the grandfather of Alexander Pushkin. And this is the information which was transferred in the family stories, and there are not that many documents confirming it, but there is no other explanation of the interest of young Innokentий in poetry. And he started to write his poems as early as in the age of 9. There is a story, which might be not true, that his sisters once saw his writings, saw his first early poem, and they laughed at him. That was the primary reason why he didn't show his poetry to anyone else for long years. Only at the age of 40 he published his first poetry collection, been writing since the childhood. Let's read together one of the poems just to get an idea of his poetry, and I will tell you a little bit more about his style and about the importance of this poet. Среди миров в мерцании светил одной звезды я повторяю имя. Не потому, чтобы я ее любил, а потому, что я томлюсь с другими. И если мне сомненье тяжело, я у нее одной ищу ответа. Не потому, что от нее светло, а потому, что с ней не надо света. Here we can read the symbolical interpretation of love and of the feelings towards the woman who is replaced in the poem by a star. Before Annenskiy in the Russian poetry, we can hardly find a poet who will do it, and that influenced the younger generations a lot. That's how in Russian literature appeared so-called symbolism, when you're replacing some thought by the symbol of this thought, and when you're changing the thing, the real world, replacing them by some symbols and by some impression of you. And Innokentий Annenskiy here is firstly among the first of people who tried doing it, and so-called silver age of the Russian literature is also rooted exactly in this poetry. As for the poet himself, when he was young, he decided to study and not to become the governmental worker as his father. So he is finishing the university, and his older brother, who was a very active revolutionary at the time, because we are talking about the times, the beginning of the end of 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. And his brother was very involved in this revolutionary movement. He even was arrested and sent into prison, and then he was sent to Siberia. So when they were around, the brother not only helped him to prepare for the exams, for the entering exams, he also advised him not publish the poetry till he would become the respectable and developed person. That's how both starting from his childhood experience, when his sisters told that they were literally laughing at his poems, and then in the more advanced age, but in his early 20s, his brother, whom he respected a lot, said the same, hide your poems. That made this situation when the great poetry influenced by the time, written on time, very contemporary with the movements, with the thought movement in Europe at the same time, they were hidden and not known to anyone. This poem we read together right now, Between the Worlds, it was base for the song written by Vertinsky, a famous composer, and you can listen to this song. It influenced so many people after it was published, but regretfully the poet himself, he wouldn't see it because his health during the lifetime was very weak, starting from early age, and probably it influenced the lines too, because often they are very depressive, and that's why he will publish his work and die soon after it. Only the poets, the small circles of the time, they were reading this collection of poetry, especially because of the revolution, and people were involved in different things. And only now, after so many years, we are rediscovering the poems and the poet. And there are so few facts from his biography that I almost cannot tell you anything interesting. Instead of that, I offer you to read another poem together. Две любви. Есть любовь, похожая на дым. Если тесно ей, она дурманит. Дай ей волю, и ее не станет. Быть как дым, но вечно молодым. Есть любовь, похожая на тень. Днем у ног лежит, тебе внимает. Ночью так неслышно обнимает. Быть как тень, но вместе. Ночь и день. In the everyday life, Иннокентий Анненский was a very self-closed person, I would say. He had a wife, Nadezhda, and they had a child, a son. But when Nadezhda, being so outgoing, invited her friends to their home, Innokentiy stayed indoors and never went out to greet the guests, and he didn't like to hang out with people. Being the head of the gymnasium in the Tsar's village near the Peterburg, as for his students, they remember him also as a very restrained person who wouldn't be kind to them, but who will sometimes show them that he is disappointed, and who loved a lot the Greek mythology and the classics. He was the one who translated the Greek poet Evripid, the whole his poetry, into the Russian language. And this is, of course, the great job, a very huge one, and he did in a poetical way too. So he was good at his work, but as for the personal communication, he was kind of closed, and that's another reason why we don't know about his feelings. And even when he published this collection of his poetry called the Cypress Chest, because he put all his poetry, all the lines in the chest, which was made of the cypress tree, he wrote it, he was 48 years old, and he wrote as his pseudonym Nobody, Nikto. Let me know if you think that this modesty is somehow explainable, and that if you would behave the same way, would you publish your works if you would write any, or you would also do it just for yourself, just enjoying what you're doing. And let's read together another deeply symbolical poem, which is not that straightforward, and you do really need to spend some time thinking about it and thinking what the author meant. Он и я. Давно меж листьев налились Истомой розовой тюльпаны, но страстно в сумрачную высь уходит рокот фортепьянный. И мука там иль торжество, разоблаченье иль загадка, но он ничей, а вы его, и вам сознанье это сладко. А я лучей иной звезды ищу в сомненье, и тревожно, я как настройщик все лады перебираю осторожно. Темнеет. Комната пуста, с трудом я вспоминаю что-то, и безответно и чиста за нотой умирает нота. The poet will die in 1909 on the train station near the Tsar's village. He wouldn't see his glory, and his glory would always be quiet. Let me know if you liked his poetry, if you see any parallels with Anna Akhmatova, whom we read together. And let me know if you have a favorite poet who is also very good but not that famous. I would be happy to read his poems. Thank you very much for watching. Special thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make this video happen. If you can, please join them and support the channel. And if not, just put your likes down there, it will help a lot too. And subscribe for the channel so you wouldn't miss our next episodes. Thank you again for watching and staying with me. I hope to meet you very soon. Goodbye for now.